Welcome to today's PAWSCAST.
Good day, everyone. My name is Don Swager, Director of the Safe Office here at Frostburg State University, and welcome to another episode of our PAWSCAST. I'm honored to have two special guests with me today as we discuss financial health. Our first guest is Ms. Robin Foreman, and she has served 45 years in the industry, 6 in a supportive role, and 39 years as an advisor. Robin has held various leadership positions on several boards of directors for charities in her community, such as Big Brothers and Big Sisters and the Maryland Salem Children's Trust. Additionally, Robin serves on the board of the Psalm 119 Association Incorporated, an international ministry. She has turned the phrase giving back from a mere cliche to a profound way of life through her years with the Foreman Financial Group. Our second guest, Kristina Dunn, has worked by a very important principle to give service. You must add what cannot be brought or measured with money, service, and integrity. While client objectives may be as diverse as preparing for retirement or planning for a child's post-high school education, the client's goals are first and foremost important. Kristina has been with Foreman Financial Group as a financial advisor for 24 years. She is active with her church, Eckerd Baptist, and feels blessed to work in a Christian environment. Each workday at Foreman Financial begins with a Christian devotional and prayer. Well, welcome, folks. Robin, Kristina, it's nice to see you, and thanks for being at Frostburg State during this episode.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So our first question is, should college students take on part-time employment?
I can answer that. Yes, we feel that college students should take on part-time employment. It gives them a sense of pride. It helps them to have better time management. And we've seen studies where college students that do work are more responsible adults because they have been able to manage their time. When I went to Frostburg State University, I worked 1, sometimes 2 part-time jobs in order to afford the tuition.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you make, Kristina, time management, because it's one of the things that we're constantly telling our students, because I think that's going to be a key to their success. So I'm really glad that you said that. So moving along to our budget, what's the best way to establish a budget and track expenses? And are there some resources or programs that you can recommend?
Well, there are all kind of resources out on the web. But I think the simplest approach, especially for a college student, would be just to sit down and say, okay, how much income do I have? What are my important and major expenses? Sit down and look, okay, add those numbers together. At the end of the month, do you have a deficit? Do you have a little bit of money left over? If you have a deficit, you can't pay your bills. Guess what? That means you have to go out and work and earn more money to be able to afford the expenses that you're responsible for. If there is an overage, then a sinking fund should be set up. For instance, if you are not budgeting for oil changes for your car, if you're not thinking about a tire, how often do you have a tire that blows, or you get a nail in your tire and then you can't repair it and you need another tire? So if there is a little bit of overage when you first look at the income and expenses, you do need to put that aside for a sinking fund. And again, if you don't have enough, find another job, find another way to earn some money. Then when these traits then will carry on into adulthood and help them become a mature adult when they get their real job and be able to figure out, how do I budget that money? What can I afford? What can I afford?
So as adults, I think it's wise to have an emergency fund.
Absolutely.
I try to, because you never know when an emergency is going to occur. Should college students have an emergency fund?
Yes, everybody should, because you don't know, again, when that tire is going to blow. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe your parents live out of town and you need to fly home for a funeral, or somebody is sick. So having an emergency fund is key to being able to balance a budget and not be able to blow your budget every time an emergency happens.
How about college roommates for the students that live really off campus and on campus? When you think about it, Do they have an impact on a person's budget and finances?
College students, yes, roommates definitely have an impact. I remember when I was away at college, if you do your budget and you budget a certain amount to, I'm going to go out to eat 1 or 2 times a week. And then your roommate's like, oh, this is a third or fourth time, and they're pressuring you into doing things and breaking your budget. Yeah, that can have an impact. But the student that does the budget can also have a positive impact because maybe they're explaining to their friend, you should have this budget. You should stick to your goals and what you say. And another thing is some college students have to work. Some college students have their parents paying for everything. So that can make a difference also.
Yeah. So I think peer pressure is a really good point. And it makes sense. You kind of pulled that thought, Kristina, out of my brain. I was thinking that if I had a roommate and, they were pretty well to do, and I kind of grew up, with some economic disadvantages, it may be a little bit difficult, to save money, maybe establish bad habits and so forth. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So what about credit? Is it a good idea for college students to establish credit? And if so, how? And if not, when?
Credit's not a bad thing, and I would never suggest that people go out and get loans just to establish a credit score. A credit score is just a number that's being used by an institution to say, is this person worthy of being able to repay? You can still rent property. You can still buy a home without having a credit score. So you back up, and credit cards tie into that also. Should a college student have a credit card? Well, it depends on the person. If somebody is very disciplined and they can charge their food and their gas on the credit card, but then pay it off every month, that's not a bad thing. However, for the ones that don't pay off their balances, they're setting themselves up for their future adulthood to always be struggling with finances and with staying within a budget. And that's important because it can affect your net worth in the long run. It can affect how much money you have to put away towards retirement. So yes, but also no. Parents have to know their child, whether they should do that or not. And it, again, depends on how responsible that person's going to be.
So I know as a college student, I went to a private school, had to take out some student loans and so forth. And I remember the days of getting married as a young person and having to pay off those awful student loans. So how does a college student minimize their debt?
I was lucky enough that I worked and I was able to pay for each of my semester upfront when they came. There's a lot of different ways, and one of those ways is starting when your children are born. So there are college savings accounts out there, and so parents can open those and start saving for their children for college. Grandparents can also start to save. If a student is getting closer, then they need to work. Sometimes they'll get money for birthday or Christmas. They need to start saving that. So the closer that they get to college, the more they need to think about, I really need to save my money for college instead of spending my money on something insignificant.
Now, I know as an undergraduate, I never even thought about the idea of paying off my student loan when I was still in school. I mean, is that an option for students? I mean, can they do that if they're able?
They can, but the money would be better off used for current expenses instead of taking out more student loans. So the more money that they can pay on their tuition and their books and their room and board up front instead of taking the loans, then that's the less that they're going to have to pay. So, and there are programs out there in order to help you pay it off, but the only thing I can say is just live within your budget. Live under your budget if you can, and make more money and just pay it off as quickly as possible. Because when you get married and start a family, you don't want student loans hanging out there.
Yes. Good point.
Well, another thing, Dawn, is Kristina and I are a mother-daughter team in a partnership. So when Kristina was young, it was required of her anytime that she got any money for birthdays, Christmases, whatever, grandparents giving money for Easter, it was required of her that no matter what she got, 10% of that was put back for a tithe. 50% of that was put into her savings account for her future expenses or education. And then the other 40% she could put in her piggy bank or keep at the house. And eventually, when I remember one time we went to Walmart and she was into New Kids on the Block and she wanted a poster. And I said, well, that's fine, but you have to pay for it. We're up at the counter and getting ready to put it down on the belt. And she says, I really don't need that. So, and there are things that parents can do to start their kids out with a good footing. So thankfully, Kristina did not need to use any of the money that she put back for college, but she was able then to buy her first vehicle. She had the use of a vehicle until she graduated. And then after she graduated, she wanted a different vehicle. The sedan wasn't cool enough.
Mm-hmm.
So she was able to use the money that she had put back to purchase her own vehicle.
And that's a great point for the parents that are watching or listening today. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I think that especially young parents, kind of just starting off and having children, I mean, it's just wise, and it's discerning. And I think that it's a really good thing to kind of instill those values into young people right away.
It's very important for the parent to sit down and teach. But the problem is sometimes the parents don't know it themselves and they're not disciplined. So, a wonderful gift you can give your child is to teach them from a young age and not hand them everything that they want. They have to be, again, it goes back to discipline. They have to be disciplined enough to know the cost. If I buy that, then I don't have money for something else. So when parents are looking to whatever the future is for their child, they also have to be sitting down and talking to their child, probably when they start into middle school. And they need to tell them that, listen, college is expensive. You have options. You could, the kids in high school now, when I was going to school, you were going to school, we did not have the ability to have college classes in high school. But the kids have the ability to have that now. They can have those classes and credits, go to a community college, then transition to a university, and that keeps the cost down. Parents need to sit down and they need to talk to their kids about this. They need to know. Because when the kids say, I remember Kristina, she said, I want to go to Syracuse University. What? I said, you don't look good in orange anyway. But so it was like, okay, we need to have a little talk here. And it's like, as a single parent raising her, I don't have an endless pocketbook to be able to fork this money out. So we need to stay within a margin. Parents need to sit down and have a realistic talk with their children and let them know, hey, if you can afford Ivy League, tell them. If you can't, then take that off the table. They're not going there.
Yeah.
And, there are just so many other options, going back to the student loan, that they don't have to come out with $100,000 in debt, $200,000 in debt.
Well, it's like you said, it all starts at home. We can't rely on the school system to teach our kids about finance, but also, some of these kids that want to go to certain high schools to play sports, and then maybe they're not getting the education that they need, or maybe they're not able to take those college classes because of the sports that they're playing. So it's like Robin said, it all starts at home, and it all starts at you talking to your kids.
I think that you raise a good point, Kristina, because I was thinking that, as a youth myself, I was involved in all the sports that were offered. I didn't have to pay anything. I mean, everything was provided for me. I had two boys. One was an athlete, and remembering the amount of money that we had to put in just so that he could participate in athletes. And whether that be a private school or a public school, parents and the student athletes are faced with a lot of expenses. So I think that some of the things that you're saying are really good, for parents and student athletes to kind of grasp and get a hold of, because, sometimes you don't expect those unhidden costs or fees that may be affiliated with just simply wanting to play a particular sport.
And there's also, there's many areas where kids can get scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter is going to the Career Center and she's taking the health field. And so if her grades are good, she'll be able to get scholarships based on that. She works at Chick-fil-A, and I know they offer good scholarships. So those are also other things to think about. Trying to find a job where you can get those, or finding a job where it's very flexible to work around your school schedule.
Mm.
Well, another part of that too, Don, is when you talk about sports, is these travel leagues. Oh, if parents would just sit back and look at the amount of money that they're putting into the travel league, and if they would take that money and put it into a college savings account or an education savings account, they could probably pay cash for the tuition versus the money that they're putting out for the travel. Now, yes, that helps build the child. It helps with their growth and their just how they look at life and how they react to different situations that they get put in. But how many of those parents that spend thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars into travel ball, and the kids don't get any scholarships or don't play sports? They might be able to walk on. I don't know. I'm not really big into all that, how all that works. But really, how many? What is the percentage? I haven't
Less than 1%.
Thank you. Okay. So really, parents, think about that.
Yeah.
It's important to do your best and to focus on paying for the schooling up front as you go, and not having these student loans loom over you, because it could affect how you get a job or what kind of job you get. There's many ramifications from having these student loans hanging over your head.
Are there other financial aid resources that we haven't talked about that you could think of that could be of help to students and their parents?
I think just the scholarships.
I don't think that people understand the scope of the scholarship. I mean, here at the university, there's plenty of opportunity for students to apply with I can't believe how many scholarships that we just provide here at the university.
You have a very active and healthy foundation here at Frostburg State. But also, I think that the parents, again, it goes back to parents. The parents need to sit down and say, okay, I know you're in school and I know that, you're taking heavy load and you're taking some college classes, but you also need to go get a part-time job. And then in their junior year, in addition to your part-time job, you have a job to get on that computer and seek out every scholarship you can possibly find. That's free money. Mm. So you take the amount of money that they get for that scholarship, divide it into the time that they spent finding that scholarship, and you'll see that they're making more than they would get working at Chick-fil-A per hour.
Yeah. And to back up what you're saying anecdotally, I know that I have students that I have advised and counseled who 100% of the time, those students that have a part-time job of employment are more responsible, and their GPAs are always higher.
And they feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
It really gives them a leg up to when you go into the workforce and you do start a family and you need to manage your time. And so it definitely gives them more pride in themselves.
Employers look for those kids.
There you go.
They would rather have an employee that was very active and busy and kept their nose clean than somebody that was just sitting around and attending classes and then playing video games.
Yeah.
And sometimes those part-time jobs can also go along with whatever you want to get a job in your future. And so it can be twofold.
Yeah. So it looks good on the resume.
Right.
When you go into that interview, say a student hypothetically will graduate with an undergraduate degree, but they don't have any experience. But if they do what you're telling them to do or advising them to do, then they have experience. I know as an undergraduate, I volunteered at a hospital in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and I was a sophomore, and I did that for a couple of years because I knew the value of gaining that type of experience. And it really did help me because I met who is still a friend and a mentor today, who really showed me the ropes and also gave me a wonderful letter of recommendation. And I was simply a volunteer for a couple of years helping out at the hospital.
Connections.
Yes.
You never know who knows who. And we're in a small town right now, and that's important in a small town. Who knows who and what connections you get. And, hey, yeah, I worked with this student and I would 100% recommend them.
Yeah.
And it shows your work ethic, especially if you do volunteer type work.
Right. So moving on to a different topic, if we may, identity fraud. I had a little bit of trouble with this a couple of years back, and it was painful, frustrating, and painful of all the agencies that you have to contact and the things that you have to do. How do students protect themselves from identity fraud?
Well, this is anybody, not just students.
Right.
They need to subscribe to a service where you get an insurance policy. You insure your car, you insure your home, you have health insurance. So insure your money, insure your identity. And there's many insurance companies out there that will allow this insurance policy to be purchased. Usually it's a monthly fee. It's usually somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 or less. And if they're looking for one, they need to look for one that does restoration. Because what you just said, you had to spend a lot of time with contacting all the agencies. So what you do is you put all your information about your bank accounts and credit cards into their database, and they monitor it. And if something does go wrong and you do get hacked or somebody does steal your identity, they do all the work. Now, you're still going to be involved, but they're the one that they call this company and they call that company to do that. So I recommend that for everybody, that they have identity theft. And we do bring that up with our clients. That's an insurance agent's role. But because we deal with money and people will say to us, how can I protect my account for fraud? Then we do say, go out and find some kind of insurance for identity theft protection.
Oh, great. So most students are not thinking about retirement right now like I am. Still have a few more years to go. But is it too early for a student to begin to invest or save for their retirement?
It's never too early. I think some of the most rewarding appointments that we have are these younger kids. And I think younger kids are really starting to pay more attention to their retirement. I had an 18-year-old come in not too long ago wanting to start saving for retirement. So we did up some numbers to give some projections on, future money if people want to start saving. And so we ran at $50 a month, and then we ran some scenarios at $100 a month. So if somebody would start putting in $50 a month for retirement, and let's say 45 years, and we like to use 8% as a, safe number that the mutual funds will do, they would have put in a total of $34,000, but they could possibly have $265,000 at retirement.
Wow.
Now, if we ran that scenario at a 10% return, which is just 2% more, they could have over $500,000. So, the time in the market is very important, but also if a student would increase that to $100 a month at 8%, they could have over $500,000. And if it does just 2% more at 10%, they could have over $1 million. Now, if students think about that, $50 a month, that's the cost of what? A pizza every 2 weeks? $100 a month is the cost of a pizza every week. So there are many ways, do you need to cut back on going to Starbucks, or do you need to not go buy that dress? There are many things that students can do in order to start saving for retirement. But the important thing is only start saving for retirement if you have your college paid for. If you have student loans, it's not advisable to start saving for retirement. You need to start paying on those loans. You need to get your college taken care of before you start thinking about retirement.
Are there any other baby steps that you could recommend? That was a great, example of how you can have a lot of money, in the duration.
I think too, if kids are working, they do need to kind of balance, going back to what I said when Kristina was younger, is setting money aside for the expenses they have now and the things they want to do. Nobody needs to be denied simple pleasures.
Right.
So Kristina has 2 children, and Luke and Casey, when they were younger, they would come to the office on snow days or sometimes in the summer to work. So they were actually given a paycheck, a W-2 paycheck.
Wow.
And we were able to start Roth IRAs for them at the age of 7 and 8 years old, in that range. And so these kids now, they didn't fully understand it then, of course, but they're starting to grasp the concept and understand it now, that how important that was that we taught them that. So saving for retirement is important, and you can do it in small amounts and still have a significant impact on your 65-year-old self.
And people need to understand that you don't have to have a lot of money in order to start investing. And don't be nervous to come in and talk to somebody. It's, get information and see what you can do. And also something that parents can do for their children, which I've done before with Luke and Casey. If, nanny handed them $20, and I would say, now, do you want to spend that $20 or do you want to invest that $20? And then I will match the $20. And inevitably, they would choose to invest the $20 so that I could match it. So if a student puts in $50 a month, maybe their parents will match it. Or if a student does, $50 a month, then they'll match it $600 at the end of the year. Those are always nice to do in order to help get your kids to start saving.
Those are great ideas. Like even grandparents could get involved, right?
Yeah, sure.
With their grandchildren and teach these valuable lessons.
But they have to have their finances under control first.
Sure. Practice what you preach, I
Yes.
guess. Yeah. Yeah. So any final thoughts? It's been great having you. Learned a lot of stuff myself. I'm sure parents out there listening and watching learn some stuff. If they have questions, how can they get a hold of you? Talk a little bit about your agency and how they can get involved with you.
Well, Foreman Financial was started back in 1999. My husband and I, we were local for a long time. We got married, moved to Florida for 2 years. When we transitioned back here, it was like, oh, what do I do? And my husband strongly encouraged me to open up my own agency. And I remember when he asked me, I said, well, I don't know how to do that. And he says, well, make some phone calls. I made some phone calls. So Foreman Financial started in 1999. And thankfully, 2 years later, Kristina had graduated from Frostburg State, and she didn't know what she wanted to do. So I said, well, come work for me temporarily and see what you think, or just stay here until you find a job. So she came in, she's a natural. So here it is, 24 years later, we are partners and it works out well. So if people want to get a hold of us, they can pick up the phone and, I used to say dial, but you don't dial anymore. 301-777-8911. Give us a call. We'll set up an appointment, and we ask them to bring a lot of documents with them, but those are all very important to get to, from where you are now to get to where you want to go.
And you have a beautiful building, downtown Cumberland, and it smells wonderful. If you walk in and you're greeted by your wonderful receptionist, I told her the other day as I was dropping off your parking ticket, it smells like peppermint in here. It's so wonderful.
Kristina's in charge of the peppermint every day in the diffuser.
Well, it's wonderful. It's very relaxing. It's a warm environment. You feel right at home right away.
Thank you.
So
We appreciate that.
So good job. Well, thanks for being with us, Robin, Kristina,
Thanks for
sharing your
asking.
expertise with us today. Hopefully, folks at home, you learned some information about finances, and it's never too late for your students to begin starting a savings account, a retirement plan. You heard it from the experts today. I'm Don Swager. Thanks for joining us with another episode of PAWSCAST. And remember, healthy choices equal healthy lives. Have a great day.
Thank you for being a part of our PAWSCAST. This health and wellness podcast is brought to you by the Prevention Center and Peer Education Network at Frostburg State University. If you would like more information about our programs, visit us in Pullen Hall, room 109, or call us at 301-687-4761. Or you can always send us an email at safeoffice@frostburg.edu. Remember to watch our other episodes and stay tuned throughout the semester. Thank you!